They know how we go about handling situations of communist infiltration and failure to act on FBI information about communist infiltration.
And may I add my small voice, sir, and say whenever you know about a subversive or a communist or a spy, please hurry. Will you remember those words?
Amid threats of communist infiltration drawn dark from the consequences of World War II, laced red by the terrifying reality of the atomic bomb, tensions grew high within America, and the social-political environment took a heavy blow, even before the Cold War had begun. Communist infiltration had been a fear held secretly in the hearts of Americans since the first Red Scare in the 1920s that had led to social ousting and the bomber raids. This fear was only magnified once World War II ended, as revolution consumed China and other countries in Asia and Europe, slowly forming the communist bloc. However, the communist presence in East Europe wasn't the only perceived threat to American safety. In 1949, President Harry Truman released a short but shocking statement to the American public, one that was inevitable, but still terrifying. I believe the American people, to the fullest extent consistent with national security, are entitled to be informed of all developments in the field of atomic energy. We have evidence that within recent weeks an atomic explosion occurred in the USSR. With these words, paranoia became a new normal for millions of Americans, and Senator McCarthy's legacy was born. Joseph McCarthy was a controversial Republican U.S. senator from Wisconsin who gained notoriety by making unfounded claims of government infiltration by communists. Before all this, though, he was a young dropout growing up in the roaring 20s. McCarthy was born in 1908. He was raised on a dairy farm in rural Wisconsin, experiencing an average working-class life. He worked as a lawyer and a judge before serving in the Marines during World War II. Following World War II, McCarthy entered the political scene, leveraging his war status as Tail Gunner Joe, a title he had made up for himself after the war, and flexing his status as a decorated veteran with a claim to combat he did not experience. He entered the Senate as a Republican, having defeated seat holder Marion La Follette Jr. in the Wisconsin primary. Because his early Senate tenure from 1947 to 50 was unremarkable, he saw a higher profile issue when it came to re-election. On February 9, 1950, he traveled to Wheeling, Virginia, and gave the speech that would change America forever, starting an anti-communist revolution. McCarthy's enemies from within. He's lighted the spark, which is resulting in a moral uprising, and will end only when the whole sorry mess of twisted, warped thinkers are swept from the national scene, so that we may have a new birth of national honesty and decency in government. In this speech, McCarthy presented a sheet with an alleged 205 members of the Communist Party within the State Department. He listed only one actual name to the crowd, that of Alger Hish, who was convicted for espionage prior to the speech. Despite the number of people on the list changing in subsequent speeches, frequently between 58 and 81, this action gained McCarthy notoriety and, most importantly, trust. He used his position and newfound fame to interrogate those he did not agree with. Under his senatorship, 395 people were secretly interrogated over 160 closed executive sessions. While these interrogations were used to vet witnesses for the trials of others, they were known to be harsh and led to destroyed careers. Any left-leaning interrogees were villainized, and those whose word could be twisted were dragged into televised public witch hunts. With his actions stricken by fear and paranoia, the communists were on the line, believing the Senate was every way to be lost. But not every citizen believed McCarthy. Journalist Edward R. Murrow, of CBS Seek Now, used his platform as an attempt to dethrone McCarthy, critically analyzing and exposing him in public views.
We will not be driven by fear into an age of unreason if we dig deep in our history and our doctrine and remember that we are not descended from fearful men, not from men who feared to write, to speak, to associate, and to defend causes that were for the moment unpopular.
Columnist and radio show host Drew Pearson attacked McCarthy in his words and was among the first to challenge the senator. Pearson's intense critique of McCarthy's red reading prompted McCarthy to assault McCarthy was never prosecuted. He shortly took to the Senate floor to brag about the assault and announced Pearson as a diabolical voice of international communism. Despite risking his career against an avid alarmist and losing several sponsors and the bulk of his popularity in the process, both Pearson and Murrow had a loud, anti-fear response that targeted McCarthy in the name of reforming the revolution they had been thrown into. McCarthy made one vital error. Comfortable in his powers which he had abused for so long without consequence, he stepped out of the shadows of herd mentality manipulation and into the view of incurate law. Though no consequences had arisen from his earlier fear-mongering, when he made threats against Army officials and started an investigation into Army Civil Corps in order to secure preferential treatment for a close friend of his chief counsel, G. David Schein, so came his downfall. As a reaction to his attacks on the Army, he became subject of an investigation by the Committee on Government Operations Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. The investigation reached its climax during a series of televised U.S. Senate hearings. From April 22nd to June 17th, the Army McCarthy hearings. The hearings exposed McCarthy's bullying tactics to millions of viewers, as the Army fervently accused McCarthy of trying to blackmail them into securing perks for the drafted Schein. The hearings were broadcast live by ABC and Dumont, drawing up to 20 million daily viewers, which allowed the public to see McCarthy's aggressive, often abrasive demeanor firsthand.
I think no personal injury, Mr. Cole.
No, sir.
And if I did, I beg your pardon. Let us not assassinate this lad further, Senator. You've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir?
Rather than defending himself, McCarthy spent his time in this court attacking senators, racking up public distrust and even hate, as his loyal followers came to doubt his previous word in the face of McCarthy's obvious lies against the Army. The committee found no credible evidence against the Army. Following the hearings, the Senate voted to censure McCarthy for his conduct in December of 1954, effectively ending his influence. In the end, this era left lasting scars on American society by fostering a culture of fear, political conformism, and deep distrust that shattered careers and reputations. It destroyed the American left, stifled political dissent, and established a precedent for using paranoia, blacklisting, and unsubstantiated accusations to control political discourse. Despite the negatives, however, it taught the power of standing up and using whatever platform you have, even when it seems hopeless, and showed that while paranoia and, more blatantly, fear may shape humanity, truth rules it.